What if one of Christianity's most famous metaphors was also one of history's most effective tools for social control? Unfortunately, the one body, many parts imagery from 1 Corinthians has been used by empires, kings, churches, and modern corporations to convince ordinary people to know their place for the good of the system. From ancient Rome to modern workplace culture, we'll see how empathy and interdependence can be twisted into obedience, and how we can reclaim those ideas in ways that actually support human dignity, equality, and flourishing. Welcome to another bonus edition of the MTB Podcast, a segment of the weekly episode that I call Afterthoughts. This is my favorite part of these weekly presentations because it gives me a chance to dig a little deeper into something that came up during the main episode. We are all one body. Oh, it sounds beautiful, right? A message of unity, care, and radical empathy. But what happens when a tyrant uses that exact same phrase to keep you in your place? For thousands of years, rulers, kings, and even modern CEOs have weaponized the Bible's one body metaphor to argue that because you are the foot, your holy duty is to walk in the dirt and never question the head. I think it's time to pull back the curtain on how a text meant for community care became history's ultimate tool for social control, and how corporate culture still uses it against you today. So let's dive into that in this episode of Afterthoughts. Look, I'll admit, there's something genuinely beautiful about the imagery in 1 Corinthians 12. Paul describes humanity as a body made up of all these interconnected parts. The eye cannot say to the hand, "I don't need you." The head can't survive without the feet. In its most charitable reading, it's an argument for human dignity, mutual care, and social interdependence. It pushes back against arrogance and reminds people that every contribution matters. And honestly, that part, that still resonates. Human beings are interconnected. None of us survive alone. None of us built modern civilization single-handedly. Somewhere, right now, somebody you will never meet is growing your food, repairing your infrastructure, maintaining your electricity, or designing the software that's running on your phone while you doom scroll through political memes and pretend that counts as activism. But here's the problem. The body metaphor has a dark side, a very, very dark side. It sounds compassionate on the surface, but it has also been used for thousands of years to lock people into rigid social roles and convince them that hierarchy it's natural, it's moral. Oh, heck, it's even sacred. Under a tyrant, the message quickly changes. It stops meaning we need each other and starts meaning know your place. Suddenly the powerful become the head, the laborers become the feet, and anyone questioning the arrangement they're accused of threatening the health of the entire body. In theory, the metaphor promotes unity. In practice, it almost always becomes a tool of obedience. And once you notice this pattern, you start to see it everywhere. Kings used it. Empires used it. Churches used it. And still use it. Corporations use it now too. And the language changes a little, but the emotional mechanism stays remarkably consistent. Right? Convince people that the system itself is sacred. Then frame dissent as selfishness or betrayal. That's why this conversation matters, because empathy without equality, it can become manipulation. And communities built on permanent hierarchy eventually stop being communities and start becoming machines designed to protect the people at the top. One of the most fascinating things about Paul's body metaphor is that he didn't invent it. He didn't come up with it. The idea was already ancient by his time. In fact, one of the most famous versions comes from Roman political propaganda nearly 5 centuries earlier during an event called the Succession of the Plebes. And so here's the setup. The plebeians, the ordinary working class citizens of Rome, well, they were freaking furious. They were being exploited by the wealthy patrician class. They were just crushed by debt. They were expected to fight wars while the elite benefited from their labor. So eventually, they did something radical. They walked away. They left the city and essentially staged a massive labor strike. No workers, no soldiers, no functioning economy. Suddenly, the ruling class realized that maybe the people actually doing the work mattered after all. And funny how that happens. So the Roman consul, Menenius Agrippa, was sent to calm the situation down. And he told the plebeians a story. He said the body's hands, teeth, and feet, well, they became angry at the stomach because the stomach just sat there consuming food while everybody else did the hard work. So the limbs rebelled and refused to feed the stomach. But eventually, the entire body weakened and began to starve. The moral is that the ruling class, the stomach in this scenario, was necessary for society to function at all. The workers needed to stop complaining and just return to their duties and let the stomach continue doing the stomach's job. Now, let's pause for a moment and appreciate just the sheer audacity of that argument. Imagine billionaires today responding to labor strikes by saying, "Look, I know you think you're underpaid, but have you considered how exhausting it is to own 5 houses, 3 yachts, and a private jet?" That's basically what was happening here. Agrippa took a legitimate uprising against exploitation and reframed it as a threat to social harmony, a threat to society itself. Instead of addressing injustice directly, he redirected empathy upward toward the ruling class. And this matters because Paul's audience lived inside that Roman cultural world. The body politic metaphor already carried a ton of political baggage. It already had a history of being used to encourage compliance and to discourage rebellion. Now, to be fair, Paul may have sincerely intended the metaphor to encourage care within early Christian communities. But as I've said before, these texts don't exist in a vacuum. Ideas carry historical DNA. And once Christianity eventually fused itself to imperial power, well, the old Roman interpretation came roaring back with just terrifying efficiency. When Christianity became intertwined with the Roman Empire under Constantine, and then later evolved into the religious structure of medieval Europe, this one body metaphor stopped being merely symbolic theology. It became social law. And medieval societies were organized into what historians often call the 3 estates. Those who pray, the clergy, right? Those who fight, the nobility, and those who work, the peasants. Everybody supposedly had their God-ordained role within the grand cosmic hierarchy. The king ruled because God wanted him to rule. The nobles fought because God assigned them that duty. And the peasants, well, the peasants worked themselves into an early grave so everybody else could enjoy castles, banquets, and embroidered robes. Here's where the empathy language became especially toxic. Peasants were taught to empathize with the burden of leadership carried by kings and nobles. They were told that social suffering was necessary for the stability of the whole body. Complaining about exploitation wasn't just political rebellion, it was spiritual rebellion. If the kingdom was the body of Christ, then rebellion became a kind of autoimmune disease. Anyone dissenting was portrayed as a cancer cell attacking the sacred order itself. This is one of the oldest tricks in authoritarian history. Redefine obedience as morality. Convince people that suffering in silence is virtuous. Tell them that their poverty is noble, while the ruling class accumulates unimaginable wealth. And if anybody starts asking difficult questions about fairness, accuse them of threatening unity. Funny how unity almost always seems to mean stop making powerful people uncomfortable. And before modern people get too smug about all this, let's remember that these ideas never fully disappeared. We still inherit them culturally. We still romanticize hierarchy. We still treat wealthy or powerful people as somehow inherently more valuable or more deserving than everybody else. We still confuse authority with wisdom. The costumes changed. The emotional machinery? No, it's still the same. Today, most CEOs are not standing in cathedrals declaring themselves divinely appointed rulers. Only our president does that. No, most CEOs, they've got better branding consultants now. Instead, they tell employees things like, "We're a family here." Ah, yes, the corporate family. The magical workplace where everyone is supposedly equal. Right up until layoffs happen and suddenly half the family loses health care through some automated email that was generated by HR. Modern corporate culture has inherited the old body metaphor almost perfectly. Employees are constantly told that every role matters, that everyone contributes to the mission, that the company succeeds together. And again, there's a small grain of truth buried inside that. Organizations do require cooperation. Successful teams do depend on one another. But watch what happens when workers begin demanding fair wages or better working conditions or actual power sharing. Suddenly the empathy becomes very one-directional. Employees are encouraged to sacrifice for the team, work overtime for the family, stay loyal during hard times, be understanding when budgets are tight. But when profits dip or shareholders get nervous, the executives who preached family values, our corporate family, well, they often feel remarkably little emotional attachment to the people they eliminate from the payroll spreadsheets. Apparently, some family members are more expendable than others. And the language matters because it manipulates our emotional instincts. Human beings are wired for belonging and cooperation. We want to contribute to something larger than ourselves. That's not weakness. That's part of what makes civilization even possible. But corporations frequently exploit those instincts while maintaining enormous inequality between the executive head and the laboring feet. You can see it especially clearly in anti-union messaging. Workers are told that organizing creates division. That asking for more fairness, well, that hurts the company. They're told that conflict threatens the team culture. Once again, the old metaphor reappears. Don't disrupt the body. Don't threaten harmony. Don't ask why the head earns 400 times more than the hands that are actually building the company. So where does that leave us? Do we throw out the entire idea of interdependence because tyrants abused it? I don't think so. The core insight underneath the metaphor is still profoundly true. Human beings are interconnected. Empathy, cooperation, mutual care, they're all essential for healthy societies. The problem isn't interdependence itself. The problem is attaching interdependence to any sort of rigid hierarchy. So here's the crucial difference. In an actual biological body, a foot can't become an eye. Roles are basically fixed. They're permanent. They're immutable. But human beings, well, they aren't static organs in a body. We are adaptive, creative, evolving individuals. A healthy society should not be locking people into predetermined social positions based on class, race, gender, wealth, religion, or inherited status. A healthy society should allow people to grow, should encourage people to grow, should help people to grow, to move, to contribute, to redefine themselves throughout their lives. That's where a humanist approach becomes radically different from authoritarian body politic thinking. A healthy human community, it's not a pyramid pretending to be an organism. A healthy human community is a network of equals cooperating through consent, shared dignity, and mutual respect. Responsibilities can change. Leadership can rotate. People can challenge systems without being treated as traitors to society itself. And importantly, real empathy flows in all directions, not just upward toward those in power. A genuinely healthy community asks whether workers are thriving. It asks whether vulnerable people are protected, whether systems are fair, whether human dignity is being respected across the board. A healthy community does not just ask whether the machine is still functioning efficiently for the benefit of the elites. That, ultimately, is the danger of the old one-body metaphor when it's fused with hierarchy, with rigid hierarchy. It can quietly convince people that their suffering is necessary, it's permanent, and it's morally required for the greater good. But true empathy should do the opposite. It should push us towards systems where nobody is permanently trapped at the bottom of someone else's social order. Because human flourishing is not about teaching people to accept their place in the machine. Human flourishing is about building communities where every person has the opportunity to grow, contribute, question, lead, rest, create, just live with dignity. And maybe that's the real challenge hidden underneath all of this ancient mythology. Learning how to care deeply for one another without turning care itself into just another tool of control. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Afterthoughts. If you want to keep up on everything I'm doing, please head over to thecodaproject.com and subscribe to my newsletter. You'll get notifications whenever I publish anything, and I'll also keep you updated on the weekly live streams of Mythologizing the Bible. If you subscribe for free over at the Coda Project, you'll start receiving my publication called The Weekly Compass. This is a brief guide on a single core value. Think of it as a mini lesson plan for personal growth. It's perfect for families, students, and adults because I include discussion questions designed for each age group. As a subscriber, you'll also have access to the Guide to Kitchen Table Activism, which is a detailed resource designed to help you be politically active from your own home. The guide explains why activism is important, the philosophy behind kitchen table activism, and the foundational values it supports, before laying out how to use the tools you have to make your voice heard. It provides tools, tactics, and templates for you to use, and it only takes 15 minutes a week. If you care about our democracy, our country, and our world, then I encourage you to check it out. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, remember to question everything, keep what's good, and live what matters.